Quarterback battles happening across the Big 12. Important ones to me include Waco, Provo. We'll talk BYU and Baylor specifically, but we have Locked On Baylor's Cameron Stewart. So let's start with Dave Aranda's Bears, where DeQuan Finn, the MAC Player of the Year, and Sawyer Robertson, a very kind young man who played football last year for the Bears, are duking it out in a battle. Why hasn't there been a quarterback clarified in Waco?
I think they're keeping it all pretty close to the chest here. DeQuan Finn is going to be the starting quarterback come week one. Mm-hmm. He just is. And this is going to make me sound really homerish, which you know I'm a huge homer. But I think it's true. I think Baylor is in an okay spot, no matter even if it is Sawyer Robertson, because Sawyer got to play some games last year. He did show some flashes towards the end. I think what we could all agree on was it just wasn't the offense for him. I think a lot of people were surprised that this guy who was running an air raid in high school and in college under Mike Leach is coming to play in the wide zone at Baylor. And now Jake Spavital's here, and it's back to really airing it out to a true spread offense. So, and he's got a year under his belt. He's, 20, 21 years old now, rather than a 19-year-old kid coming in out of Mississippi State with very limited snaps. So I think if he is able to overtake DeQuan Finn, that is a positive thing. That DeQuan Finn is not falling off a ledge so that Sawyer Robertson can overtake him. That would mean Sawyer earned the job. So I think Baylor either way is in a good spot. And I think we've seen both of these prototype quarterbacks, both Sawyer and DeQuan Finn, succeed in this style of offense. What we saw at Baylor under Art Briles. This offense seems to be very similar style to what they ran 10, 12 years ago. And we saw a guy like DeQuan Finn. Let me clarify, a guy like DeQuan Finn in terms of skill set and Robert Griffin III obviously be very successful. We saw a guy like Sawyer Robertson in Bryce Petty be very successful in that offense. Seth Russell for DeQuan Finn as well, because he could get out of the pocket. He could run it a little bit. Nick Florence on the Sawyer Robertson plane as well.
Streets remember.
So the streets do remember, which is for like 5 people listening right now. So I think Baylor's in an okay position either way. I don't think either one of these quarterbacks are going to be Heisman finalists or all Big 12 guys, but I think it will overall be a better quarterbacking situation than they were in last year, with a guy with Blake Shapen who was low on confidence, became injury prone, and a backup who probably wasn't quite ready for that offense at that stage and was thrown into it very, very early on in week 2 against Utah. So I think overall they are in a better position, but yes, it will be DeQuan Finn. I don't know why they haven't named him yet. They've been keeping everything pretty tight. In fact, they're not even doing a spring game on Saturday, which I know you've talked about. They're doing a spring finale practice. So we are not going to see a lot of what this team is going to run until they unleash it on Tarleton State at the end of August.
I can't. The spring game thing, give me 15 seconds. Where I can imagine
you're going to get into RJ Martinez next.
The coaches being like, or the kids after the coaches said it, being like, "What are we talking about? What the hell? What's going on right now? What like Ole Miss had this whole thing where like, hey, we're not going to do a spring game. We're going to do something very fun and cool instead." Baylor said, "We're not having a spring game. You're going to sit there and you're going to like it. You can watch us do some drills, idiot." Let's go to BYU, Provo, Utah. Jake Ratzloff, the first ever Jewish starting quarterback in BYU history. Or Gerry Bohanon, who you know and love, the pride of Earle, Arkansas. Whoo! Given what you know about Gerry Bohanon,
with, by the way, I was in college classrooms with Gerry. Yeah,
Gerry, both personality and quarterback wise, is he the starter for BYU next year?
Yes, just because of what I know about Gerry. And it's something that I don't think a lot of Baylor fans appreciated when he was here, myself included in this. I thought Gerry was a heck of a quarterback, but just to take you back to the Bohanon, the timeline here, he sat for 4 seasons at Baylor before getting his first real shot and being the starter in 2021. Yeah, because he overlapped with me in 2018 when he redshirted. So So by his fourth season, so yes, sat 3 seasons. In his fourth season, he was the starter. That's a better way to put it. Yes, fourth season, he was the starter and led Baylor to their most successful season ever.
Dear God.
Ever. And was he just lacing it every time down? No. But he was a pretty efficient passer for a good bit of that season and a damn good runner and a dynamic guy. And one thing that we all took for granted was his leadership. And I know that's something that's tough to quantify, Drake. I know that. But we saw towards the end of that 21 season, he was a little bit more loose with the ball. Baylor wasn't scoring as much. They only scored 21 in that Sugar Bowl, only 14 from the offense. And you were like, okay, maybe it is time for this Blake Shapen kid. And it has been pretty bad ever since. And there has been a distinct lack of leadership on the field and confidence induced to the fan base because it wasn't Gerry Bohanon. And I think he had a tough situation at South Florida, just a program that's really trying to build from the ground up, and had them trending in the right direction. And now he comes in. He is obviously very savvy. Of course, he's one of the youngest guys on BYU's team. He's probably 25. But he will come in there and can command a huddle, command an offense. And one thing I can say about Gerry Bohanon, which is one of the highest compliments I can give to a quarterback, is he very, very rarely makes mistakes. I like Gerry.
Dave Aranda kicked that guy to the curb for the current Mississippi State starting quarterback. That's just where I'll leave that.
Yeah, and I was probably on with you on Locked On Baylor saying that was a good thing. We didn't want Gerry to leave, but I was on the Blake Shapen train, so I'll have to eat that too.
It's the old JJ Joe quote, most popular guy in town is the backup quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
And it didn't work for Houston quarterback, tight end coach Sean Bell, and current Mississippi State quarterback Blake Shapen, and hanging on by a thread Baylor coach Dave Aranda.
And Kansas offensive coordinator Jeff Knight. And TCU Drake Dabney.
And Arkansas offensive line coach Eric Mateus. The only person remaining is the head coach, who has put a revolving door on both players and personnel.
That's just kind of funny. That's just funny.
That's Cameron Stewart of Locked On Baylor. Follow him at Real Cam Stewart on Twitter for decently good tweets, the occasional great one, sometimes bad ones. This has been, it always will be,
Bruins tweets.
Locked on Baylor and Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.